Hello there, Tom. How are you today, dear chap? I hope you've had an excellent weekend myself. Well, I don't know if I can say that I have had a pleasant time. You see, I decided to finally watch this film that you recommended weeks ago, One Thrilling Night. And let me tell you, it was quite the mess.
Oh, come on, Tim. You always find something to complain about, don't you? I think it was a rather enjoyable comedy.
Sure.
It wasn't Citizen Kane or anything close to that level of cinematic masterpiece, but it was meant to be light-hearted entertainment. And it certainly delivered on that front, didn't it?
Well, I suppose it had its moments of levity, but overall I found it rather tedious. The plot wasn't particularly original, and the acting was mediocre at best. John Beale and Wanda McKay's chemistry felt forced throughout the entire film. And don't get me started on that comedic pairing of Ernie Adams and Linton Brent.
But you have to remember that this was a different time, Timmy. The film industry wasn't as polished or sophisticated as it is today. And honestly, I thought the acting was quite charming in its own way. It reminded me of the classic comedic duos of the era. Besides, you can't judge a film solely on its acting, can you?
Well, if the acting is as abysmal as it was in One Thrilling Night, I don't see why not. But let's move on, shall we? What did you think of the direction, Tim? Wasn't it? Well, a bit all over the place.
Well, it was directed by William Beaudine, who had quite a prolific career in the industry. Sure, some of his choices might seem odd to our modern sensibilities, but you have to remember that these films were made for a different audience with different expectations. And I thought he did a decent job of keeping the pace up and ensuring that the film remained light-hearted throughout its runtime.
Perhaps I am being too harsh on it. Yeah. It did manage to elicit some chuckles from me, albeit reluctantly. But overall, One Thrilling Night is just another forgettable comedy of its time, isn't it?
Oh, come now, Timothy. You're not really suggesting that we should just dismiss a whole genre of film because they don't meet your personal standards for cinematic greatness, are you? There were some genuinely funny moments and characters that made the film watchable, even if it wasn't Citizen Kane.
Well, if that's how you want to put it. But anyway, let me turn the tables on, Thomas. What did you make of this romantic relationship between Horace and Millie? It was practically non-existent, wasn't it?
But that's part of what makes it a classic screwball comedy, my dear Timothy. Their bickering and bantering are actually signs of their growing affection for one another. And I thought Wanda McKay was absolutely delightful in her portrayal of the feisty yet innocent Millie. As for John Beale's Horace, he wasn't the most charismatic leading man, but he did his job competently enough.
Well, I suppose you can find romance in anything these days, Tom. But seriously, do you honestly think that this film stands the test of time? Would it be enjoyable for a modern audience?
That's what we're here to discuss, isn't it? To revisit these forgotten gems and see if they still shine? One Thrilling Night might not be Citizen Kane, but it does provide some much-needed comic relief in our hectic lives. And who doesn't love a good old-fashioned screwball comedy with a dash of mistaken identities and slapstick humor?
All right. I'll admit that there were a few chuckles to be had. But overall, One Thrilling Night is just another mediocre comedy from the era, isn't it? It's not going to revolutionize cinema or change the face of filmmaking in any way, shape, or form.
Well, neither will our podcast, Tim dearest. But isn't that part of the charm of these forgotten treasures? They provide us with a brief respite from the dull monotony of our everyday lives. So, do you want to discuss the performances further, or would you rather move on to our next film pick?
Well, Thomas, I suppose we can't deny the fact that some people might find comfort in revisiting these old films from a nostalgic standpoint. But as for me, I'll stick to the classics that have stood the test of time and continue to resonate with audiences decades later. So let's move on to our next film, shall we?
All right, Timmy, you old stick in the mud. But seriously, though, I do understand your love for classic cinema, But sometimes it's nice to branch out and explore some lesser-known gems that might not have garnered the same level of acclaim as Citizen Kane or Casablanca. So, what have we got lined up for us today?
Well, I thought we could take a break from the comedic fare and delve into something more dramatic. Shall we say 1942's The Malevolent Stranger starring James Mason and Joan Fontaine. It's a classic Hitchcockian thriller that explores themes of love, betrayal, and revenge.
Sounds intriguing. A bit heavy for a Sunday afternoon, don't you think? But I'll give it a try. What's the plot about, Timmy boy?
Well, Tom, I'll admit it is a bit darker than our usual fare, but isn't that part of what makes it so captivating? As for the plot, one thrilling night revolves around Horace, played by John Beale, who accidentally swaps identities with a gangster named the Spider just before he is set to be executed. The misunderstanding leads to chaos as Horace, now believed to be the feared criminal, finds himself on the run from both the law and the real Spider's vengeful cohorts. Along the way, he falls for the beautiful but naive Millie, played by Wanda McKay. One interesting trivia about this film is that it was originally titled Army Bride, but due to concerns that it might be too close to the 1942 film of the same name starring Bette Davis, Warner Brothers decided to change the title to avoid any potential confusion. The film also went through several different directors before landing in the capable hands of William Beaudine, who, despite his prolific career, isn't particularly well known for his work in the comedy genre. So, Thomas, what do you think? Are you ready to dive into this twisted tale of mistaken identities and romance gone wrong?
Well, Timmy dearest, I must say that you have piqued my interest with your intriguing synopsis of One Thrilling Night. It sounds like a classic screwball comedy with a twist, don't it? A dash of mistaken identity, a sprinkle of romance, and a pinch of gangster mayhem, all mixed together in a delightfully chaotic mix. Now, as for the direction, William Beaudine was known for his fast-paced, no-nonsense approach to filmmaking. While he might not have been an auteur in the same league as, say, Capra or Ford, he knew how to get the job done efficiently and, effectively. His experience working on numerous B-movies during the golden age of Hollywood honed his craftsmanship, ensuring that even the most mundane of scenes would have a spark of life in them. Now, moving on to the performances, I must commend John Beale's portrayal of Horace. He balances the character's naivety and panic with a dash of resourcefulness, making him relatable and endearing to the audience. Wanda McKay as Millie brings a fresh, innocent charm to the screen that perfectly complements Beale's bumbling charm. Their chemistry is appreciable, even through the black and white film stock. Overall, while One Thrilling Night may not be a masterpiece of cinema, it serves its purpose as an enjoyable, light-hearted distraction from the trials and tribulations of real life. So, Timothy dearest, what do you think? Are you ready to dive into this madcap adventure with me?
I'll admit, Thomas dearest, your description has piqued my interest. But before we dive headfirst into the film itself, let's talk about the supporting cast. Ernie Adams and Linton Brent as Mooney and Richmond, respectively, bring a welcome dose of comedic relief to the otherwise chaotic plot. Their bumbling antics and witty banter provide much-needed comic relief throughout the film. Gene O'Donnell's portrayal of Skinny adds an air of menace to the gangster trio, while Jim O'Gaddy's Tubby brings a touch of clownishness that balances out the group nicely. Barbara Pepper, as Dottie, is a scene stealer with her droll delivery and sharp one-liners. She effortlessly commands attention whenever she's on screen, elevating even the most mundane of scenes. Now, let's not forget the film's leading man himself, John Beale as Horace Jason. He masterfully juggles the character's naivety and resourcefulness, making his transformation from hapless country bumpkin to accidental gangster endearingly relatable. His chemistry with Wanda McKay's Millie is palpable, creating a believable romantic arc that keeps the audience rooting for them throughout the film's twists and turns. And speaking of Wanda McKay, her portrayal of Millie is nothing short of enchanting. She brings refreshing innocence to the screen, making it impossible not to fall in love with her character's naivete and optimism. Their on-screen chemistry is the heart and soul of One Thrilling Night, anchoring the film's madcap adventure with a touch of genuine emotional depth. So, Thomas Dearest, now that we've discussed the talented cast, shall we delve into the cultural significance of this forgotten gem? How has its themes of mistaken identity and romance aged over time? And what lessons can modern audiences learn from Horace and Millie's misadventures in 1940s New York City?
Well, Timothy Dearest, as we mentioned earlier, One Thrilling Night was released in 1942 at a crucial juncture in American history. The country had just entered World War II, and the film industry was under heavy censorship, with producers being encouraged to make light-hearted, escapist fare that would provide much-needed respite from the grim realities of war. One Thrilling Night fits perfectly into this mold, offering a comedic romp through the bustling streets of New York City, far removed from the battlefields of Europe and Asia. The film's central theme of mistaken identity, while not groundbreaking, still resonates today. The idea of an innocent man being caught up in a web of lies and intrigue is timeless, and One Thrilling Night masterfully weaves this familiar premise into a hilarious tapestry of miscommunication and misdirection. Moreover, the film's depiction of 1940s New York City, with its vibrant nightlife, bustling streets, and iconic landmarks, provides an enticing glimpse into the city's golden age, long before it was transformed by urban renewal projects and gentrification. In terms of cultural significance, One Thrilling Night can be seen as a reflection of America's own identity crisis during the war years. The country was faced with a choice: continue to isolate itself from global affairs or embrace its role as a reluctant but ultimately essential ally in the fight against fascism. Horace's transformation from naive country bumpkin to accidental gangster symbolizes America's own journey towards maturity and self-awareness. Through trial and error, missteps and miscommunications, Horace ultimately learns the value of standing up for himself and his loved ones, a lesson that resonates with audiences even today. So, Timothy Dearest, to conclude our discussion on the cultural significance of One Thrilling Night, I'd argue that while it may have faded from mainstream memory, this forgotten gem of a film remains relevant and entertaining, offering a nostalgic peek into a bygone era while still tackling timeless themes of identity, love, and the power of personal transformation. And who knows, perhaps after watching this madcap adventure, we too might find ourselves embracing our own inner gangster, ready to face whatever life throws at us with a cheeky grin and a witty one-liner in hand.
Well said, Thomas Dearest. While One Thrilling Night might not be hailed as a cinematic masterpiece, it certainly knows how to entertain. The film's rapid-fire pace, zany characters, and absurd situations make for an utterly delightful romp through 1940s New York City. And as you mentioned earlier, the chemistry between Beale and McKay is appreciable, elevating what could have easily been a forgettable comedy into something more substantial.
So, dear viewers,
if you're in need of a lighthearted escape from reality, I highly recommend giving One Thrilling Night a chance. It might not be the deepest film ever made, but sometimes we simply need a laughter-filled adventure to remind us of the joy that can be found in even the most chaotic of situations. So go ahead and treat yourself to this forgotten gem of a film, and let me know what you think about Horace and Millie's misadventures in the comments below. And with that, we've come to the end of our discussion on One Thrilling Night. Thank you, Thomas Dearest, for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure as always, despite our differences of opinion. But don't fret, dear viewers. We'll be back tomorrow with another forgotten gem from the annals of cinema history. Until then, remember to comment, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. And please leave a generous tip in our virtual tip jar. It takes a lot of effort to watch all these films and prepare for our discussions. So any support you can give us would be greatly appreciated. See you next time, film lovers.